unfit for the stars. The council chamber was impossibly vast, an orbital structure built into the shell of a hollowed moon. Crystal lattices spiraled upward like frozen vines. Alien delegates shimmered in robes of nanofabric and light. Holographic banners spun slowly in the stale air, each bearing the sigils of 100 proud civilizations. At the center, Admiral Lena Ward stood alone. Her earthborn features were stark against the polished symmetry of the council. Her uniform was practical, unadorned, military, its edges frayed by honest use. She didn't wear silk. She wore steel. Behind her, the Earth delegation remained silent, watching as the final votes were tallied. Dozens of species, some silicon-based, others aquatic, still others incomprehensibly alien, hovered in translucent booths around the chamber. One by one, they cast their verdicts. Earth's petition for council membership. Denied. The tally was not even close. Chancellor Yevrith of the Valen Syndicate rose, speaking in the high tone. It is the judgment of the council that Terra, despite its technological ascent, remains unfit for inclusion in our union. Its history of internal warfare, ecological negligence, and aggressive expansion render it a destabilizing force. A ripple of nods passed among the delegates. Others didn't even bother to look at her. Lena's jaw tightened. She stepped forward into the center of the circle, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut through alloy. "Let me understand this," she said. "You welcomed the Cerelians, who detonated suns during their civil wars. You accepted the Corti, who still practice caste-based intelligence breeding. You absorbed the Drenth Combine, who ate one of your member species during negotiations." Murmurs echoed. "But us." She took a slow breath. "You look at humanity and see savagery." Chancellor Yevrith did not flinch. "You are a young species. Unpredictable. You wield great power, but lack the restraint to use it wisely." Lena smiled coldly. "No, we lack the permission to let others use it for us." A panel of elder species, a body of particularly ancient races that oversaw moral and cultural compatibility, projected their ruling. The words shimmered in every known language. Terra exhibits excessive resilience, nonconformist development, and a historical tendency towards self-determination. It remains incompatible with cooperative galactic governance. Lena stated it for a long moment. "Resilience is a flaw now," she whispered. She looked at the council once more, her eyes sweeping the chamber like a blade. "We came here because we believed in unity. We thought the galaxy had moved beyond prejudice and fey. But this isn't unity. This is gatekeeping." One of the human aides took a step forward, but Lena raised a hand. She wasn't finished. "You don't fear our violence. You fear that we won't bow." Her voice echoed with quiet defiance. "You wanted another obedient colony, not a partner." Silence fell like a drop flag. Chancellor Yevrith made the dismissal gesture. "The matter is closed." Lena turned slowly and walked back toward the Earth delegation. As the crystalline doors began to close behind them, she stopped just short of the threshold and turned back one last time. To the council, she said, "Thank you. You've saved us the trouble of pretending." The doors sealed shut with a gentle hiss. Back on the Earth ship Unity's edge, the delegation sat in stunned silence as the engines engaged. The blue curve of the council moon faded into the dark. Aide Marcus Vong finally spoke. "So, that's it." Lena stood at the viewing window, arms folded behind her back. Her reflection glimmered against the stars. "No," she said. "That's the beginning." She tapped her comms. "Patch me through to the UN Assembly and Strategic Command. Full encryption. Priority channel." A soft chime confirmed the connection. "This is Admiral Ward. The Council has rejected Earth, cited nonconformity, self-determination, and excessive resilience." She paused. "In other words, they fear what we are." She glanced back at her team, who were rising now, eyes burning with the same quiet fire. "We asked to be neighbors. They chose to make us strangers. So now we do what humanity has always done." She faced the stars, voice steady as the void. "We build our own. The steel within the stars." The shipyards of Vesta glowed like veins of fire in the void. From above, the asteroid belt looked like chaos, drifting rock and ice, but nestled within that chaos, humanity found order. Metal spires sprouted from cratered stone. Scaffolded frameworks of new ships stretched for kilometers, glittering in the dark like bones of sleeping giants. Admiral Lena Ward stood aboard the command deck of EHS Pioneer, orbiting the facility. She sipped her coffee, black, bitter, grounding, and watched the first hull plating of EHS Defiance lock into place with a thunderous electromagnetic hiss. "She's beautiful," said Director Akand, head of Earth's newly formed Stellar Sovereignty Initiative. Her voice buzzed through the hololink beside Lena. "Still think we're dreaming too big?" Lena shook her head. "Not big enough." 3 months had passed since the Council's rejection. The world had reacted exactly how Lena expected, with fury, with resolve, and, most importantly, with unity. All divisions dissolved like ash under pressure. For the first time in human history, nation-states pooled military technology, shared orbital infrastructure, and co-funded deep space logistics. Project Sovereign was born, a blueprint for not just survival, but ascension. No more waiting for galactic approval. Humanity would chart its own empire. On a nearby monitor, a news broadcast played silently. Earth's orbital station accepting its first wave of non-human arrivals, aliens who had been rejected, marginalized, or forgotten by the Council. The Vrin, a photosynthetic species whose art was banned by the Elders for cognitive contamination. The Zari, a race of cybernetic nomads who had no homeworld left after Council-sanctioned mining operations rendered theirs uninhabitable. The Skegari, bioengineered war beasts, sentient but considered too primitive to join any union. Now they had banners. Now they had a place. The Solarian Accord was no longer just a human dream. It was an alliance of the unwanted. "They said we were incompatible," Lena murmured, watching as human engineers guided alien welders into the ship frame. "Turns out we're just the right kind of different." Akan nodded. "The Council calls us dangerous. But look at what we've built in 3 months. Artificial gravity engines that use quantum threading. Terraforming swarms adapted from desert bacterial colonies. AI-operated cargo lanes between moons. And now, the first dreadnought in human history, designed not just for war, but for deterrence. The Defiance was Earth's statement to the stars. We don't kneel." A chime sounded behind Lena. Commander Reyes entered the bridge, saluting with crisp precision. "Admiral, the Skegari delegation has arrived for orientation. They've brought 5 war chants and a goat." Lena blinked. "An actual goat. It's symbolic, apparently." She chuckled. "Good. Let them be who they are. That's why they came." Reyes grinned. "Yes." He hesitated before leaving. "We're really doing it, huh? Empire building." Lena stayed at the construction bays outside. The Defiance's keel was in place. Its name, etched in bold Terran script, shimmered across the hull like defiance made flesh. "We're not building an empire," she said. "We're building a refuge with teeth." 6 weeks later, the Accord held its first interspecies council, inside an O'Neill cylinder orbiting Neptune. Flags hung from every culture represented. No elder species. No high tongue. No berries of custom or birth. Just beings who'd had enough of waiting for permission to exist. Each species presented its gifts. The Vrin offered biolite technology for agriculture in low-sun systems. The Zari linked their AI to Earth's logistics grid, quadrupling its efficiency. The Skegari introduced ceremonial combat rites that surprisingly doubled morale and reduced conflict among mixed-species crews. And humans brought resilience. They brought defiance. They brought the belief that the unwanted could become unstoppable if given the space to breathe. Underscore 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 underscore. Later that night, Lena stood alone on the gardens of the station, watching Earth glimmer as a pale dot in the distance. Her hand rested lightly on a datapad, notes for her first speech as Supreme Commander of the Solarian Accord. "You were right to bow us," she said softly, as if speaking to the council across the stars. "We would have outgrown your cages anyway." Behind her, the faint thrum of the Defiance's engines vibrated through the station. Humanity had been denied entry into the galaxy's halls of power, so they carved new ones from asteroid rock and starlight. The clash. The dark expanse of the Zeta 9 sector was as quiet as space could be, uncomfortably so. Human ships, now proudly bearing the Solarian Accord's insignia, drifted into contested space. The newly formed fleet had already seen skirmishes along the borders, small raids by pirate factions trying to undermine their stability. But nothing compared to this. This was a showdown. Admiral Lena Ward stood at the helm of the EHS Defiance, watching the star maps flicker to life on the main holo display. The tension in the sector was palpable, a storm held in place by thin lines of diplomacy. It had taken months to solidify the alliances of the Accord, but the Galactic Council and its elder members were not content to watch humans build their new empire in peace. Reports came in quickly. The Keldar, a coalition member, had sent an enforcement fleet to assert authority in the Zeta 9 region. They claimed that the sector, rich in rare minerals, was under their jurisdiction. The Council had issued a warning. Do not interfere with Council-sanctioned trade routes. Lena's lips curled into a thin smile as she watched their fleet appear on the radar. "They think we'll bend," she murmured. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The Keldar fleet arrived in a shimmering cloud of battle cruisers, sleek and predatory. Their ships gleamed with the polished grace of military power. But there was something human in their arrogance. They thought they had all the time in the galaxy to make demands. Lena didn't care for time. Time was an illusion in the vastness of space. "Commander Reyes," she said, turning to her first officer. "What's the status of the Solarian forces?" Reyes spoke in clipped tones. "We have 5 cruiser-class ships, 3 assault vessels, and support craft ready. The Skegri are already preparing their combat drones. The Vrin are offering their light-based defenses in exchange for a trade agreement post-conflict." Lena nodded. "We'll need to push them back, hard and fast. No protracted engagements. I want them gone before the Council can intervene." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "Understood. But, Admiral, how do you want us to engage? They'll be expecting us to follow standard battle tactics." Lena smiled again, her eyes gleaming with quiet malice. "That's exactly what they're expecting. Let's disappoint them." The battle began like any other, a sudden blare of alarms as the enemy locked onto their ships. Keldar warships released a barrage of plasma missiles that lit the dark like fireworks, their trails slicing through the void. But Earth's tactics were anything but ordinary. Instead of following the predictable strategies of head-on assault, Defiance executed a series of evasive maneuvers, warping its gravitational field to use nearby asteroids as shields. The Keldar were too slow to react to the sudden shifts in movement, their targeting systems unable to predict the erratic paths the humans were taking. Lena's voice was a calm presence over the comms. "Take out their forward shields first. Focus on the engines. No mercy." The Solarian fleet moved in a perfect unison that only humanity could achieve. No rigid protocols, no stagnation. Just improvisation, speed, and brutal efficiency. Ships danced around asteroid fields, dodging fire, striking at vital points in the Keldar fleet. The Defiance herself came in close, too close, and fired. A beam of antimatter that split the dark, hitting one Keldar cruiser dead center. The explosion was magnificent, a flash that turned the battle's tide. The shockwave threw the surrounding ships into chaos. But the Keldar weren't finished yet. The remainder of their fleet regrouped and launched a retaliatory strike. This time, however, the humans weren't just fighting with their ships. They were fighting with everything they'd learned, with the fire in their hearts, the scars of their past wars. "You've made the mistake of underestimating us." Lena's voice crackled over the comms again, just as another Keldar warship burst apart. The Defiance darted through the wreckage, a small, agile ghost in a graveyard of burning ships. Keldar fire poured into empty space as the human fleet executed another series of dazzling maneuvers, too unpredictable for the enemy to track. The battle lasted only hours, but the message was clear. The The Soluian Accord was not a power to be trifled with. As the last Keldar cruiser was reduced to debris, Lena surveyed the battlefield through the viewport. The cold, endless dark once again reclaimed the space where the ships had fought. "Send a transmission to their command ship," she ordered. Later, as the Keldar forces retreated, Lena stood on the bridge, her eyes burning with determination. "We're not just fighting for resources or territory," she said, speaking to her crew. "We're fighting for our place in the galaxy. And if they won't give it to us, if they won't recognize us, we'll make them." The crew erupted in quiet applause, a moment of solidarity among them all. Lena's expression softened, just slightly. "Prepare for the next fight. This isn't over. We've only just begun." In the depths of Council space, news of the Keldar defeat would eventually trickle in. But it wasn't the Keldar who would be the most angry. It was the Council itself. A new, unpredictable power had risen, and they could no longer deny it. The humans had made their mark. The legacy. The Soluian Accord's capital was not a shining metropolis, nor a luxurious palace. It was a fortress built from the wreckage of humanity's past, an old, battered space station, long abandoned by the old powers of the Council, now reborn. The Solarius Bastion had once been a mining outpost on the edge of the galactic rim. Its original purpose had been to extract resources for the Council's power elite, a remote speck of metal and steel tucked away like an afterthought. Now, it was the heart of the Soluian Empire, a symbol of defiance and survival, built from human ingenuity and the labor of species cast aside. Admiral Lena Ward stood at the heart of the Bastion's central atrium, gazing at the holo display that mapped the stars. The Solian fleet was expanding, its influence growing. As she watched, the holographic map zoomed in on the recent expansions of human-controlled space, now stretching into territories once claimed by the Keldar, the T-Core Dominion, and even the feared Wykar Hive worlds. Earth had become the center of a new galaxy, one not built on subjugation, but on self-determination. And yet, as Lena stood there was a weight on her shoulders. The peace they had fought for, the freedom they had secured, was fragile. "Admiral!" Lena turned to see Commander Reyes enter the room, his posture firm but his eyes betraying a quiet exhaustion. "The Council has sent a message," he said, handing her a data slate. "It's not what I expected." Lena took the slate, running her fingers over its smooth surface. The message was brief, but its implications were clear. The Solarian Accord has grown too influential. Its members, too powerful. This message serves as a warning. Any further expansion will be met with immediate military retaliation. Lena's lips twitched into a slight smile. A warning. As if humanity had ever listened to warnings. "They are afraid," she murmured, scrolling through the communication. "Afraid of what we've become. Afraid of what we'll become." Reyes hesitated. "Do you think they'll move against us? Do we prepare for war?" Lena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned back to the holo display of the galaxy, her thoughts drifting to the path humanity had taken. From the moment the Council had rejected them, humans had forged their own way, unwavering in the face of adversity, building an empire from the ashes of their former oppression. No, humanity wasn't about to back down now. "We'll prepare," Lena said, her voice sharp with resolve. "But we won't be the ones to start it." Weeks passed, and the Soluian Accord continued to grow. New systems came online. New members joined, swelling the ranks of the once outcast species. The Skegari, the Zari, the Vrin, along with dozens of others, had come to see what humans saw, a future built on strength, independence, and unity. And in return, Earth's empire offered them protection, resources, and respect. It was a new kind of galaxy they were building, one where power was not just about military might, but about the will to survive, to thrive against all odds. And yet, the threat from the Council lingered. On a quiet night aboard the Defiance, Lena stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars outside. It had been a long time since she'd felt the weight of the world, or, in this case, the weight of the galaxy, on her shoulders. But now, as she watched the fleet assemble, she felt the pressure of it all. "You did it," a voice said from behind her. Lena didn't turn around. She knew it was Akhand, her longtime friend and confidant. I did, she replied. We did. All of us. Akhand moved to her side, placing a hand on the console. You don't look happy about it. Lena let out a short laugh, though it was tinged with something deeper. What's there to be happy about? We're not finished. We've made a mark, yes. We've carved out a place for ourselves. But we're not done. Not until the galaxy knows what it means to be human. For a long moment, there was only silence. The hum of the Defiance's engines was the only sound in the vastness of space. You've done more than that, Akhand said finally, breaking the stillness. You've shown them all what it means to fight. To fight not just for survival, but for something greater than yourself. You've given us all hope. Lena turned then, meeting his gaze. Her expression softened. Hope's a dangerous thing, she said quietly. It can burn you just as easily as it can light the way. A few days later, as the Solian fleet gathered for its largest meeting yet, the first of many new alliances were forged. Earth stood at the helm, not as conquerors, but as leaders, offering peace, but never at the cost of their freedom. Lena stood before the assembly of species, now united under the banner of the Solian Accord. She spoke to them not as an admiral, but as a symbol of what they had all accomplished together. You were denied, she said, her voice carrying across the crowded hall, and so were we. But look at us now. We are the children of the denied, the forgotten, and we will lead this galaxy, not with force, but with the strength of our will. The crowd erupted into cheers. Lena's eyes gleamed with quiet pride as she looked over the faces of those she had fought for, and with. Humanity had risen, not by chance, but by choice. They had made their mark, and the galaxy would never forget it.